Hello, and welcome to this series that I've decided to make for some reason, in which I break down CinemaSins from a writing quality perspective. But at this point I know what you might be thinking. Isn't CinemaSins an immaculate creation from the heavens not to be questioned by mortals such as ourselves? Its sophisticated style of humour of getting things wrong a lot of the time is far too complex for any living mind to fully comprehend. Okay, that's the opening joke out of the way, so let's roll the fucking intro. It's now been over 150 days since CinemaSins destroyed Infinity War with facts and logic. People keep saying that the best thing to do is just move on, and some do, but not us. It's probably worth mentioning at this point that this is a series, and of that series, this is part 5 of... I'll get back to you on that. So it would make sense to watch parts 1 through 4 before you watch this, but you don't have to. There are no laws. I mean, you don't even have to actually eat the chocolate in your advent calendar in order. You can eat that whenever you want. It's just a box with chocolate in it. I would also like to just take this opportunity to apologize for the lateness of this part. It's been a very long time since I released the previous part of this series. And that's been because I've been dealing with an infestation in the meantime that I've had to get rid of. Oh god, no. They're back! Ah! And you see, that's why you should watch this in order, because if you don't, jokes like that are gonna just be like, sorry, what? Although I guess it could just be kind of fun to see that without any context. So whatever, I guess, do what you want. Let's get into doing the thing that we're here to do. And we're back with Sin 72.
That's all well and good, but how did she get out of the mid-air suspension thing that she was in? Doesn't that thing make you, for all intents and purposes, immobile? In fact, I'm kind of wondering how she was even able to kill that guy.
So this sin, while it is an incredibly small nitpick, isn't incorrect. As shown, the prison that Nebula is suspended in isn't something that she would have any way of actually getting out of, from what we the audience know of her situation. As for the second part of that sin, I'd say he's on slightly thinner ice with that, but the ice overall is still intact. He's not fallen into the murky waters of wrongness just yet. Jeremy says he's not sure how Nebula managed to kill that dude. While it's very clearly shown how she does manage to kill that guy on screen, it's not as clear as you might think, because I kind of went and slowed it down, and you're just kind of like, hang on, how did she do that exactly? Okay, so she has his attention, and then she hits him in the side of the head, and then grabs him, and then just sort of pulls at his head a bit, and then he's dead. Okay. It's also definitely worth noting that when we're shown... There's some Windows antivirus software there telling me that there are no viruses on my computer with a very loud noise. Thank you, Windows. That's very helpful.
This will sound every 3 seconds unless something isn't okay.
Turn it off, Homer!
It's worth noting that when we're shown Nebula suspended like this earlier in the film, her arms are very clearly immobilized as part of the device. However, this is directly in relation to the torture that she's currently being put through, so we have very little to go off of for how the system actually works when she's not being tortured. It's not established how easily she can move while she's suspended in the air at all, so having her move like this doesn't actively contradict any part of the film. Now, since the comment about them not being sure how Nebula manages to kill that dude directly follows a comment about her mobility, I'm inclined to think that that's probably what they were going for. They were saying that she shouldn't have been able to move her arms like that, which we have no reason to think. Luckily for CinemaSins here though, the actual kill as shown on screen is a little bit confusing, so whether or not it was actually for their intended reason, they're still right. Fuck, the text is too big to fit on this. I'm just gonna use numbers from now on.
Wind up implanting eggs in my chest or something and I eat one of you, I'm sorry.
I do not want another single pop culture reference out of you.
I'm trying to say that something is coming.
Really? Because there was absolutely nothing urgent about what you were saying at all.
So in part 5, it seemed we're off to a pretty decent start with the first 2 sins being technically accurate. As, actually I wouldn't even just say this one is technically accurate, this one is just accurate. Spider-Man's comment comes across as a joke, delivered in a pretty laid-back manner. It's a fun moment, but Peter is just sort of there like, guys, if aliens lay eggs in my chest and I end up like eating one of you, I'm sorry. It definitely comes across as a joke rather than an urgent warning, which is definitely what Peter would be giving if he was on an alien planet and saw people coming towards him. Not only does his joke sound nothing like he was trying to say
something is coming,
it's delivered very casually, and that doesn't really fit with what we know about Peter's character. He's a rookie and he knows it, while casually not really paying attention to strangers approaching you on an alien planet may fit a character like, say, Thor. MCU Spider-Man as we know him would be more excited, enthusiastic, but also wary of the potential threat that the aliens represent. He would be very eager to get his message of something is coming across in an efficient way. Another nitpick that totally works as a nitpick. Okay, so everything so far has been decent, but up next is a load of shit. Sin Sehev and T4? No, I don't know what this says.
In theory, it could even summon the Bifrost.
Because why not? Thor's gonna have to get to Earth faster than a ship can take them somehow. So bake in the Bifrost into this baby and we're set.
Okay, let's start by bringing up that there absolutely is a precedent for weapons being able to summon the Bifrost in the MCU. I mean, hell, it happens in this fucking movie. Heimdall uses his sword to open the Bifrost. I'm sorry, I mean the Bifrost? Is this like, okay. It's also worth noting that Odin's spear demonstrates a similar power. So there's absolutely precedent for the Bifrost being baked into weapons from Asgard. Or more accurately, Nidavellir, since that's where Asgard gets their weapons from.
Because why not?
Because why not? Jeremy, that's the question you really should be asking. It's also worth mentioning that Thor absolutely does not need to get to Earth faster than the ship can take him. Ships in the MCU use jump points, which are effectively wormholes that link up different parts of space. The physical distance from Earth to Nidavellir is no object. What actually matters is how many jump points there are from Earth to Nidavellir. And since that's something that's not actually been established yet, it would be perfectly within continuity for the Russos to just say, it takes 5 minutes to get from Nidavellir to Earth. So yeah, Jeremy is wrong about that. From a writing standpoint here, it would absolutely have been acceptable to have Thor just take a ship and arrive with plenty of time to join the party. Overall, the sin is very, very shaky, landing in this sort of, it sounds fine when you first hear it, but the more you think about it, the more it falls apart category.
You could essentially, you could create pretty much like a whole YouTube channel that's kind of dedicated to going over these points, kind of.
Could you? Do you think that would work?
I don't think it would work.
It's possible.
7 Cinti 5.
What are the odds a far-flung planet moon like Titan would have air breathable by humans?
That's it. That's the whole thing, and it's definitely a good question. Although it is a very weird place to choose to ask it. I mean, let's look at Thanos. He presumably can breathe the air on Titan because, well, it's where he's from, and also we see him doing that. That would suggest to me that he can do it. Now, we know Thanos can breathe the same air as Quill, and Quill is from Earth, so Titan air is the same as Earth air is the logical assumption to make. Like, before they even arrived on Titan, the logical assumption was that they would have been able to breathe the air. And actually, if they couldn't, it would have been an inconsistency. And going by that same logic of looking at what characters in the MCU can breathe the same air, we can extrapolate from that the following MCU planets have human-friendly air. All of them. Yeah, different kinds of atmospheres are just sort of a problem that the MCU has gone, yeah, those don't exist here. It has been well established for years that all of the characters and all of the species in this universe can just sort of breathe the same stuff. Which is why it's kind of weird that CinemaSins chooses now to bring it up in regards to one specific planet. It's like someone living in New York for years and then walking down the street one day and going, oh my god, a building! It's really strange, but that's fine, he's not wrong. It's like if someone's watched the Star Wars original trilogy, then the prequels, then the Clone Wars, then the other Clone Wars, then they're on the sequels and they go, you know, actually the Force isn't real. Like, thanks man, you're right, but okay. It's like other sins in this video where he mentions that this crazy out there sci-fi doesn't adhere to real world science.
I realize that nanobots are legit real world science, to a degree, but Tony Sood is applying it in ways that make it utterly unbelievable.
From a filmmaking perspective, that's not a problem. It doesn't have to, but there's no rule against pointing it out. And he's allowed to have his suspension of disbelief broken by whatever breaks it. That's subjective. Sin 76.
So wait, at the end of Captain America, Red Skull touches the Space Stone and is sent into space to be a sort of keeper of the Soul Stone? It really just seems like a reason to shoehorn Red Skull back into the story more than anything that makes sense.
You know, when responding to these sins, I like to go back and look to see what was said about these sins in EFAP, to see if there's any relevant footage I can use to break up me just talking for ages. And here's what was being said in EFAP around this time in the video.
EFAP is weird.
You know what, quick tangent, it's weird going back and listening to those old streams to edit this now, Because it was just like, it was one of my very first streams I ever did live, and also I didn't really know the EFAP people very well back then. So yeah, hearing the way that I'm not quite in my comfort zone in these streams yet, it's just kind of fun to look back on. Also, while we're on tangents, while I was looking for like B-roll and just extra footage I could use in these videos, I stumbled on this news report on CinemaSins, which is just so hilariously badly edited in places.
It's a dream come true.
The dream comes with working more than 40 hours a week. Scott does most of the voice work, while he and Atkinson split both writing and editing from home.
Wait, okay, so they're showing Gravity, and okay, there's the CinemaSins, but oh my god, look how badly aligned that is with the monitor, fuck. And then here's some typing for no reason, and okay, let's go back to talking. So wait, at the end of Captain America, Red Skull touches the Space Stone and is sent into space to be a sort of keeper of the Soul Stone? It really just seems like a reason to shoehorn Red Skull back into the story more than anything that actually makes sense. Now, my policy when determining the validity of all the stuff that CinemaSins said is to look back at the actual text to see if anything supports it or contradicts it. Him showing up here isn't contradicted by anything, but it isn't really supported by anything either, which really makes it hard to assess. But I guess this is as hard as my job gets, so I should be thankful. Well, actually no, the hardest part of my job is being threatened by absolute dipshits, but let's not get into that right now. Normally I like to have evidence to support what it is I'm talking about, but up next is an almost completely evidence-free clump of YouTube content, in which I'm going to talk about Red Skull. Now, as much as these movies are about the stones, we actually learn very little about how they operate and how they function. We were shown very clearly that Red Skull was just sort of sent somewhere that wasn't Earth, and that was basically all we had to go on. From a writing standpoint, you can't really say that the film has done anything wrong. Everything here operates well within the pre-established rules that the film has set up. On the other hand, there was no setup to really suggest this specific thing was going to happen. We knew that Red Skull was in space, but nothing more specific than that. But Jeremy says this doesn't make sense, which isn't really true, and he also implies that there's some other possibility that would have made more sense, which also isn't really true.
Red Skull back into the story more than anything that makes sense.
Guiding others.
I'm sorry, what would have made sense when he got transported by the Tesseract?
Yeah.
What exactly is the outcome there that's supposed to happen? Like,
Yeah.
obviously he was supposed to go to heaven, idiot.
Well, here's the thing.
You don't know that.
This is Nazi hell. He has to spend eternity helping people who are not white.
I have to say, Nazi hell is a lot less brutal.
He has to spend an eternity amongst people who aren't white.
Well, yeah, a purple guy and a green chick walk up, and you have to help him, and you're a Nazi. How do you think you're gonna feel about it? You have to help a purple man take over the universe.
God, there's so many more layers to this scene than I ever thought.
Satan's sitting there, and he's like, "What do you think of that, huh? Green people
The
now."
Nazi is wrestler, he's not even white now.
Didn't think about that, did you?
And he's like, "Green's not so bad." It's like, "What about purple then, huh? What about that?
Yeah.
Purple."
70, 70, 70, 70, 70, 70.
Guiding others to a treasure I cannot possess.
Are you saying you've had a lot of people looking for the Soul Stone since you got sent here in 1945? What happened before you were here? Was Warren G. Harding guiding people back then?
So if we were to, for some reason, assume that CinemaSins was a serious criticism channel, this kind of thing wouldn't fly. It's just like, hey, this thing is happening now, but what was happening several decades before the start of the movie? That's relevant, right? No. But this just seems to be a sort of snarky joke, so let's leave it at that. This one is a joke. It doesn't need to be relevant film criticism, it just needs to be true, unless the point of the joke is to, you know, not be true. But it isn't, so that's fine. Sins like...
In theory, it could even summon the Bifrost.
Because why not? Thor's gonna have to get to Earth faster than a ship can take them somehow. So bake in the Bifrost into this baby and we're set.
Imply a problem with the film, and the humour element comes from laughing at that problem with the film, but the problem with the film isn't valid, so when you actually know that, the joke falls apart. But there's nothing like that here, it's just a hypothetical question with what I suppose you could call an attempt at humour on the end. Sin 78 and also Sin 79, they're very similar, so I've grouped them together.
Soul holds a special place among the Infinity Stones.
Why?
You might say it has a certain wisdom.
But why?
That's it, I really have loads to be going off of here, so good for me. And while I must say, I personally don't give a shit what the answer to that question actually is, it's fine if they ask, because it's something that's not explained in the film, so by asking it they're not demonstrating ignorance, they're asking about something that goes unexplained. Now, if you remember the criteria from all the way back in part 1, just being accurate isn't enough. For a CinemaSins sin to get a pass from me, because I'm a tight fucking bastard, it has to actually be relevant to the film in some way, or just an attempt at humour. If Jeremy were to say, "We never actually find out what Thanos ate for lunch," then that's true. But why are you saying it, man? Why is that a bad? Basically, at the point where he's just pointing out random things or asking completely random questions, I would call that filler. So the question here becomes, is this relevant to the movie? And I think it's really pushing it, but it's okay. It's definitely on the edge of that line. This information isn't actually important to understand what's going on in the movie, but on the other hand, the movie is just sort of pulling a "it's like that. Why? Because I said so," which, as we all know, is the most annoying thing that teachers could ever say to you when you asked why you'd been asked to do something. This information didn't need to be included, but maybe it could have contributed to the film, so they're cool here. You know, there's actually nothing stopping me from doing all of these sins completely out of order.
The stone demands a sacrifice.
Why does the Soul Stone require so many more parameters to acquire it than any other stone? It's like the original creators of the stones themselves said, okay, if you're powerful enough to hold the other 5 gems, we'll let you change reality, move across space at will, increase your strength, and harness the most powerful energy in the universe, go into the past and the future, and access other people's minds. But when it comes to controlling all life in the universe, that's where we draw the line.
So my response to this one is going to be mostly the same as my response to the last one, with one minute little detail different. The way that CinemaSins argues this one requires the stones to have been created by a person deliberately, which there's no evidence in the MCU to back up. So yeah, they can't just say things like, why did the person creating the stones make this decision, when we don't actually know they were created by a person, or even intentionally. So, plus one inaccuracy point to CinemaSins here. I'm sure it will make a massive difference to this. This is a transition card between the sins.
Dude's got kind of a thing for bubbles, I see.
And another one that's skirting the line of, is this actually relevant to the film? Is this humor? Is this filler? What is this? These are actually like the least interesting ones I find to respond to, so in a desperate attempt to make this video more entertaining, I'm just going to show a short clip of my cat. Look how cute she is. She's a little bean. A little bean of a cat. Okay, there we go. But yeah, CinemaSins is right, dude does got a thing for bubbles. So I guess we'll categorize this as what it pretty much clearly is, just a random comment. There's no real merit to it, but there's also nothing really wrong with it. He said a thing, and a thing was said. Can you make some more outrageous mistakes, please, so I can have a more entertaining video?
The line where Thanos is crying, and then Gamora's like, what? You're crying because you're sad about not being able to take over the world? And then it pans over to Red Skull, and he's like, those tears are not for him. And then she goes, oh my god. And it's like, I think she could have figured that out, or at least we could have figured that out, just by having the seed without exposition, man.
Weeble deeble dooble deeble. I've realized I can say whatever I want in these.
I feel like the sacrifice of Gamora would have played a lot better if Thanos had been given his own proper origin film, and if we'd had more reason to suspect his love for her.
Again, this is absolutely true. Dude does got a thing for bubbles. But this is a comment that you can pretty much always make about literally anything. You know what would have made this moment more impactful? If we'd seen more things building up to it that would have made it more impactful. That is true. You know what would have made this more impactful? If we'd known more about Darth Vader's and Palpatine's relationship. The fact that something could be developed more doesn't mean it's underdeveloped, but they're not saying it's underdeveloped here, simply that it could have been developed more, which is true. You can say that about anything though, and it's still true. So I'm happy to give this one a, okay, it's technically true, I guess. Vision bats.
This death is sad, until you realize that A, the Time Stone will end up figuring into her coming back to life anyway. We did not expect that. The Time Stone will end up figuring into her coming back to life anyway, and B, that despite all the problems since the firing of James Gunn, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was ready to go into production after this movie.
Okay, so now knowing the outcome, no further debunking has to take place. This death is sad, except it's not, because you know they're just gonna undo it, except they don't, so... This death has real lasting consequence and is the end of our Gamora's story. But whatever, at least this sin wasn't disprovable for about a year. That's a lot better than a lot of these other sins are. Sin Feodazig! It's been a long time since I've had to speak German. I'm sorry for what I just did to your language.
What the hell hell happens here? He kills her, the weather gets weird, a flash, and suddenly he's in a pool of water with a stone? How and where is there any water here anyway? It's like an ice dimension with snow. Is he not on Vormir anymore? I'm actually so confused by this cut, I suspect the next movie might hinge in some small way on it.
Now, I think it's really clear that this is just supposed to be him obtaining the Soul Stone. He's passed the test and then he's given the stone. Now, there's no information in the film to support why it actually happens like this, but this is just sort of another moment of
Doll holds a special place among the Infinity Stones.
Why?
And at this point, I'm just kind of getting tired of it. Like, yeah, they do keep the Soul Stone mysterious and mystical, but Jeremy sure is getting a lot of mileage out of just going, these things aren't explained to us explicitly. Wah. I'm definitely going to go so far as to say at this point, this just feels like filler. It really isn't contributing anything. And that Sin didn't seem to have any intention of humor behind it either. This is absolutely filler. And it gets even dumber and even more fillery when he goes on to say,
how and where is there any water here anyway? It's like an ice dimension with snow. Is he not on Vormir anymore? I'm actually so confused by this cut, I suspect the next movie might hinge in some small way on it. But whatever. It's still a weird cut location change in the movie, and I shall sin it.
Yeah, this second part is absolutely fucking ridiculous. Let's start with how and when is there any water here anyway. Let's just play some other shots of Vormir. That's a lot of water. Some more in the background there. Oh yeah, some more water there. In fact, in these 6 shots we get of Vormir before they go up the mountain, 5 of them feature water somewhere. So, is this what satire is? Okay, then he says, it's like an ice dimension with snow. There is snow, but you know what snow is, mate? It's just fucking cold water, innit? Have you ever seen like those really shitty days where it's snowing, but then when the snow hits the ground it melts because it's not actually cold enough to get like snow cover? Have you ever seen that? Have you ever seen like snow falling into a lake and the lake is still mysteriously water? Since when is there water on Earth? Isn't it just like a dimension of ice? Are they even on Earth anymore?
Something's entered the atmosphere.
Just one line about how Thanos or something with the stones tells him exactly where each one is would be fucking terrific. It didn't help him at all with the Soul Stone. He needed Gamora to tell him that. So why the precision knowledge with the others?
And this one is criticism, and it's absolutely accurate criticism. It's an inconsistency within the film that Thanos and the children of Thanos know where all the stones are. Like, it's absolutely reasonable that they'd have a lot of intel on where the stones are, like they'd know that the reality stone was with the Collector and stuff like that, because they've researched this shit, but they have no way of knowing that Vision is in Wakanda as far as we know. Accurate inconsistency, let's move on. You know how there's normally a sound effect on these? This time I'm gonna make it with my mouth.
These ships hit the Earth at massive speed. I don't understand why they don't do to the planet what meteors that large would do, like in Deep Impact or Age of Ultron. And yet, they don't. They just cause little fire ripples and loud noises.
I am so fucking ready to research meteors. Because, let's be honest, there's no way CinemaSins didn't pull this out of their ass, right? They saw a fast thing and were like, you know what else is fast? Meteors. And they cause massive craters, right? Probably. Who cares? Let's send that. But as convincing as I find Jeremy's logic of thing fast, therefore bang, why no bang? Well, the official size of these ships isn't listed anywhere and we don't really have anything to reference scale by. What we do know is that it takes about a second to move the distance shown on screen there. In that time, it moves approximately 1.5 the distance of its own length. If we very roughly guess that they're 500 meters tall, that puts them at a speed of roughly 1.5 kilometers a second. Let's compare that speed to the speed at which meteors hit the Earth. For this example, let's use one of the biggest recent meteors to hit the Earth, this meteor. You see, the joke is that word is hard to pronounce. You know the one. This is the one that hit Russia in 2013 that we got loads of dashcam footage of. Yes, my source is Wikipedia, fight me. So how fast was this ship going compared to that meteor? Well, the ship was going roughly 1.5 kilometers a second, and the meteor hit the Earth at 19 kilometers a second.
I don't understand why they don't do to the planet what meteors that large would do.
Maybe because they're moving at less than 1/10 the speed. I also like how he uses words to make the impact sound as light as possible when actually it's a massive fuck-off explosion.
They just cause little fire ripples and loud noises.
So this is by no means conclusive. There's very little to go off of here for scale and speed, but that pretty much means that CinemaSins are talking out of their ass because there's basically no way to tell how fast these are going. Their logic does seem to be they are fast. Therefore, they are as fast as meteors. Ah yes, the two speeds. Slow and extinction level event meteor. Oh, he is absolutely suggesting that this should be an extinction level event, by the way. CinemaSins is saying that they think this should cause enough damage to wipe out humanity. They compare this hitting the Earth to the meteors from Deep Impact and Age of Ultron, both of which are supposed to wipe out humanity.
I don't understand why they don't do to the planet what meteors that large would do, like in Deep Impact or Age of Ultron.
So real extinction level event meteors, let's go with the famous one, the one that killed all the dinosaurs. That asteroid was 10 kilometers across. So if we look at the ship, do we think that this is more or less than 10 kilometers large? Now, I can't tell you what impact these ships should have caused, because I'm not a physicist, but I can tell you what CinemaSins are suggesting is ridiculous. They're saying, why don't they cause the same damage as these things, when these things are like astronomically larger and faster? That last one was fun. I hope the next one is as well.
This battle at Wakanda doesn't make a whole lot of strategical sense. Thanos already has enough stones to wreck these Earthlings on his own. He needs Vision's stone. That's basically the only reason he sends this army. Feels like we needed something actiony to do with a bunch of our characters that didn't make the trip to Titan, and we came up with this.
You just answered your own question.
Yeah, like, he needs Vision's stone. That's the only reason he sends the army. Pretty big reason.
Yeah, that's kind of, yeah.
I only need this stone to nuke the universe, so...
and this is going on while he's getting the other stones. Like, it seems reasonable. And obviously Thanos is like, hey, if they're unsuccessful, I will mop up. Is what he does.
So first things first, while addressing this one, I'd like to bring up a sin we covered in part 3.
His henchmen failed to get the stone they were sent after, and they peace out to save their own skin. And I'm pretty sure even they know that Thanos values the stones over his henchmen. So what the f*** are these minions thinking, bailing out like this?
Now, as we established in part 3, they weren't running away just to save their own lives. They were running away so that they could regroup and then form this attack in Wakanda. But CinemaSins said that these characters shouldn't have run back to Thanos. So surely when they found out that these characters didn't run back to Thanos and are still trying to get the stones, they should have realized that all of these characters' actions are consistent with what they were saying they should be doing.
Is he honestly asking why they decided to bail out instead of die?
I think so, yes.
That's an interesting question.
That is an odd question.
We could figure out the answer.
But instead, when CinemaSins sees that the children of Thanos are still trying to get the stones like they said they should be, they're like, well, that doesn't make any strategical sense at all. Why doesn't Thanos just do it? But the children of Thanos are a force operating independently of Thanos here. Plus, what do you think Thanos is doing right now? Like, just sitting down twiddling his thumbs? Waiting there like, man, if only someone was here to tell me to get into the battle right now, then I could actually start helping. Why don't you go and help with the battle? Oh shit, that's a good idea. Pretty sure Thanos is trying to get the time stone on Titan right now. If he was on Wakanda helping his army, then Jeremy could just as easily say, this battle at Wakanda doesn't make a whole lot of strategical sense. Thanos already has enough stones to wreck everyone on Titan. He needs Vision's stone, but that's basically the only reason he's here. This isn't a matter of Thanos not bothering to get one of the stones himself. This is literally just a matter of what order he gets them in. And as far as he knows, order isn't going to make a difference, but it ends up making a difference in his favor, because he needs the time stone to get the mind stone. And if he didn't have it, then he'd have to go get the time stone quickly, and then come back to get the mind stone when he was done. Sin number 80. Actually, if you're wondering why I keep showing footage of this Minecraft world, I feel like I should just explain it to you, because, you know, it seems a bit random. Why is there, like, Minecraft in the background of loads of the transitional slides? And that's because this is a Minecraft map I'm actually really proud of. This is my satirical Minecraft map. And what I did was I started out with a flat land, and I built it up so that it looked exactly like a random procedurally generated Minecraft map that you'd get, like, anyway, like that you'd find naturally in Minecraft just by playing. So it's satire, right? Because what I've done is I've made it look like I've put no effort into it. And that's what satire is. So that's why I keep showing footage of this. This number is like 2 sideways infinities.
I'm gonna hold it open.
That's suicide.
So is facing Thanos without that axe.
Okay, dude, you f***ing had a magical hammer made by this guy at this place, and your sister smashed it like it was chocolate. I take offense to the idea that an axe from here could defeat Thanos, and the fact that it nearly does.
Okay, so power levels wise, Hela is by far one of the most powerful characters we've seen in the MCU. She beats Thor, and Thor is able to beat Hulk, and Hulk is, you know, really fucking strong. Mjolnir was shown to be an artifact of incredible power basically for the entire time it was on screen. But because we once met one character who was able to destroy that weapon, apparently these weapons should be ineffective against Thanos now.
So Hela probably could have done some damage to Thanos, honestly.
HGLA.
Hela, she seemed OP from Ragnarok, really OP. And can you imagine her fighting Thanos? That could have been cool, to be honest, but I imagine she could do some damage before he uses...
Yeah, she could just, like, lower her head and run and, like, stab him with her stupid CGI antlers.
But yeah, the fact that she could destroy Mjolnir doesn't tell me that Thanos is immune to Mjolnir.
Now, that's not to say that the Maul...
I believe a hammer axe is called a maul. I may be mistaken.
No, hamax. It's in
Hamax.
Terraria. They call it a hamax, I believe.
When you said ham axe, I imagined an axe made out of ham.
Now, that's not to say that the Hamax here should have been able to defeat Thanos. As shown, there's no reason that Thanos couldn't have used the Reality Stone to turn it into bubbles, used the Time Stone to reverse it back towards Thor, or just use his legs to step slightly to the fucking left. Instead, he decides to just stand in front of it and fire a beam at it, because Thanos is really smart. But the logical through line here used by CinemaSins doesn't work. Hela destroyed Thor Hammer, therefore new Thor Hammer can't defeat Thanos. We don't actually know the relative power levels between Hela and Thanos, we only know that Hela was really strong and Thanos is really strong, but not that bright. And that's it for today. I hope you've all enjoyed. This part was a little slower than most of the parts, I feel. Let me know if you enjoyed this part as much as you enjoyed other parts, or less, or more, or whatever. I want to keep my content accurate, but I also want to keep it enjoyable. Now, we have 38 sins left to cover, and I generally do between 15 and 20 sins a part, so this series is probably going to last 2 more parts, but it might take 3, and then after that we're going to get a summary of the results, in which I give CinemaSins like a percentage accuracy rating and look at how much of it is filler and stuff like that. But this has been fun, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.